All right, welcome to Behind the Bar. I'm your host, Danny Johnson, and we are here. And my guests are always other dry bar comedians who have had dry bar special or specials. As a reminder, our dry bar, our Behind the Bar podcast is sponsored by RX Solutions. If you're looking to save up to 75% on your next prescription and you're underinsured or uninsured, go to rxsolutions.online. My guest today is someone I had the pleasure of working with and meeting and chatting with online thereafter. He's got, I believe, 2 dry bar comedy specials. Another special I think I saw live at Franklin Theater.
Right.
And you might have seen him on Huckabee. Please welcome the terribly funny Jonnie W. Johnny.
Terribly. Is that like being infamous rather than famous?
Well, here's why I say terribly funny, because I'm a little jealous. So you do have 2 specials, right?
I've got the dry bar that is getting, it'll be out when this drops. I think you said this will come out late August. My second dry bar will be out mid-August is what they're telling me.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
And what was the Live at Franklin Theater special? We
shot that in 2016. That was self-produced. I have buddies. It's Nashville, so I have a ton of friends who are videographers and things like that. So, and cinematographers. So I had a buddy who's a longtime collaborator of mine. And he wanted to film it. So we shot that on my own dime. So, yeah. And we recouped, but as you know, it's expensive to shoot comedy special.
For sure.
Yeah. So that was in 2016. I think we shot it in 2015, released it in 2016. And so, and that's available on all platforms too. I think that's on Apple Music. I still get I get a few pennies a month from those downloads.
You get it from Sound Exchange? Are you registered with them?
I'm with Sound Exchange, and I'm also on what's the TuneCore?
Yes.
To put you on stores and things like that.
So. Right. Like you get to see somebody in like the Netherlands watch it on their.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Not too bad. But yeah, that's been fun. And yeah, so I have that. And then I've done a couple of TV spots for what's called Circle Network. I think it's the Opry's network. It's a new kind of startup channel. So
okay.
TV spots like that. But yeah, the dry bars have been super fun. And yeah, they've been great to work with and very cool. And when did you do yours? One of the first seasons, right?
I think 4. So I think January 19.
Okay. Yeah, mine was late 19, but it didn't release until 21.
Yeah, mine released. I got mine with 9 days notice, so I guess someone fell out.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, man, how can I lose 30 pounds in 9 days?
Yeah, buddy, I'm telling you, it happens.
It's a lot of pressure.
That's what I always tell my wife. I was like, I just need to shave and shower and lose 50 pounds and I'll be ready for the show.
Right. So I'll be in the shower for 4 days.
A long time. Yeah. How much steam can we get going here?
Are you, you're in Nashville, right? And is that where you were born and raised?
No, I grew up in East Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay. I remember there was a Comedy Zone in Knoxville many, many years ago.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I was there when it was there, but I wasn't like allowed to go to comedy clubs back then. Yeah. I would have been forbidden. But they had another club there when I started comedy that I would go back and forth and do spots at when I was just MC because my brother still lives there and I would go stay with him and make $25 a show. As you know, that's the ropes. But that was a club called Side Splitters.
Yeah.
And they have a Tampa club as well. It was a chain. And I think the Side Splitters since closed in Knoxville, but it's still up in Tampa. But
yeah, I think they have 2 locations now in Tampa, which is odd,
but Side Splitters was, it was pretty wild. And that was one of my first club experiences was there in Knoxville. But yeah, they're so funny because they don't have a club at all now. And it's a big city. They don't have any comedy clubs.
Those are the 2 you think of, Nashville and Knoxville, when you think of Tennessee.
I mean, Nashville, Knoxville, Memphis, the big 3. And it's like, you can't, there's no rooms. I mean, there might be comedy rooms in Knoxville that I'm just not aware of, but
there's where's Johnson? Johnson City's in Tennessee, right? Johnson City.
Yeah, it's just east of Knoxville. Yeah, it's.
I mean, they have a Comedy Zone there.
Mm-hmm. What is it, like attached to a hotel and all that stuff?
Oh yeah.
In one of the banquet rooms or something.
Yeah. Anytime it says comedy night, it's like that's not what it's meant for.
Yeah.
But
this is like the Kiwanis canceled, so now we're gonna have a comedy night.
I'm near Jacksonville, Florida, and I did a show last night in Fruitland Park at this community center, and they told me it used to be the library.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I was like, that's how I opened my show, and I'm like, so you just decided, we don't need no books here.
Yeah. We're tired of people learning.
Right. I don't need no readers walking around this town.
Hilarious. Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, when people like try to make comedy out to be like this art form and it's so great, it's so you're so smart, and it's like, no, don't. It just laughs. It's okay.
Yeah. And
I
some
think
nights
it's
better than
dangerous
others.
when I think it's dangerous when comics start to like. I think comedy is an art form, or it's more of a craft. But comedy can be important. But I hate when comics you can catch them trying to be important.
Yes.
That's annoying to me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Trying to be funny.
there's some comedy. Yeah, there's comic sets that I'll watch and I go, man, that was an important comedy set, but he didn't know it at the time,
Right.
you know. But when you watch a comic kind of wink at the camera, like, get ready for the bomb, I'm getting ready to drop, you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it just feels like an altar call at a bad evangelical like tent meeting to me. Like I grew up in church circles, so I can see when the person's like, okay, I'm gonna do one song.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit him, and then it's like, so when I see a comic kind of doing that, I'm like, all right, buddy, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. It's almost like a creepy salesman that smiles at you after they make the
Yeah,
offer, like to force you into
yeah,
like, ah.
yeah. What would you pay now? Hmm?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's one of the weird things. I think all comics have their weird pet peeves like that, and I think
Yeah.
it's kind of rooted in your own upbringing and your own weird neuroses. And I think that's one of them. That's one of mine. Is when I catch myself being like, "Well, I'm an artist. How dare people?" Like, I have to kind of stop myself and be like, "What are you doing? You sling jokes for a living. Shut up, idiot!" Like, I don't
Right.
know. Rick Roberts is a good buddy of mine who also is a dry bar comic, and we talk all the time. And we were riding bikes the other day, and he said he did a speakers conference, and one of the speakers, one of his catchphrases was, "Your ego is not your amigo." And I thought that was so great. It's so great. It's true. Anytime you catch yourself getting like a little full of yourself, it's always destructive. It's never good. Like when
I
you're
had
like,
a,
don't
I
they know
had,
who I am? It's never going to be good from
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I had a comment made to me about my dry bar set, and of course we focus on the one person in the
Yeah.
crowd, not like if you're at a live show, the one person not laughing at this. This is the one comment said something like, "I would love to see you up your intellectual quotient." Like, you want
Oh,
me to? Come
yeah.
on, man. I'm just trying to make people laugh.
So funny, man. Well, that's the thing is there's smart comedy that I like, and then there's really silly comedy. Like I like the idea that there's so much. It's like music. There's a million different
Yeah.
flavors and all that stuff. And it's like, imagine telling Louis Anderson that he needs to be smarter.
Right. Right. Right.
Like do you even understand Louis Anderson? Like
Yeah.
he's a genius, but he's a goof. That's
Yeah.
his whole deal.
If I happen to make a point on stage with one of my jokes, it was an accident.
Right. One
It's
thing I do like to do though is like challenge. Like if I know I'm in front of like I do a lot of churches. If I'm in front of like an evangelical group, I like to a little bit challenge the status quo. I hate to feel like I'm just pandering.
yeah.
Like if you find yourself getting like a bunch of applause breaks, my buddy Aaron Weber calls it clapter. Like it's not laughter and it's not really clapping. It's just
Yeah.
kind of agreement. Like I
Yeah.
think if you find yourself in a room where you're just getting an hour of like agreement nods and
Yeah.
clapter, that's a kind of, you got to check yourself and be like, am I challenging their beliefs at all? Not challenge their spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, but like I do a joke about doing a homeschool convention, which is a true story in Fort Worth, Texas. And we booked the show, and the lady calls me all excited. And I was homeschooled my last 2 years of high school, and she found that out. You got to write some homeschool jokes. They'll love you. We
Yeah.
love these people love to be teased. And I was like, lady, I'm on it. And then I go, they do not love it. And then because I say, do you want to hear the joke that I told them that made them mad?
Right.
And the audience always goes, yeah. And then I say, like, I run out. I go, what is the difference between 1,000 homeschoolers and my dogs? And they were like, what? And I said, my dogs are vaccinated. And like I tell that joke in evangelical churches, and many of them are whatever. They have their own feelings about vaccines or whatever. Some of them are homeschool families. But I think it's important to be like, let's laugh at ourselves a little bit. Like, don't just toe the line to be like, these liberals are ruining the country. Like, all you're going to get is clapter from that.
Yeah.
Like, push back a little bit just to show them that, like, you have a pulse. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just my own sensibility.
No, I get it, because it's almost like you're preaching to the choir, right? You're just there.
So I that's a challenge. Sometimes I have a lot of different audiences that I do comedy for, but I do have a lot of faith-based audiences, and I love them. And but yeah, sometimes you just got to be like, don't get so comfortable that everything has to just totally line up with everything you believe. Like, hear another viewpoint every now and again. That's one of the things that comedy can do that not all art forms can do and all crafts can do. when I used to watch Richard Pryor, I didn't have any idea what he was talking about. His life experience was nothing like mine, but he kind of drew me into his world, and I was like, oh, this is how this other person, like, that's okay. That's totally okay to have that.
It's funny. You have me thinking, what a great point, Johnny. You have me like kind of going through my set in my head. Do I have any jokes that I don't necessarily believe what what the joke is about? Like, so I think the closest thing I think of is anytime I may take a dig about a woman I'm in a relationship with, right, or an ex-wife. Like, obviously, I'm not a chauvinistic person, but that's the joke, and some people might walk away like, oh, he's a show,
Yeah, that's always the thing. You're got to be careful. That thing is like, I hate that you have to be so careful, but like, that's the thing about satire is you're taking the risk that not everybody's going to understand that it's satire. And you have to just be able to live with that, and that's a weird line that you walk. Because if you keep your comedy very broad and accessible to everybody, it's so vanilla. It's like Jerry Seinfeld used to compare it to like a cliff. Like, one side of the cliff is the setup and the other side of the cliff is the punchline. And the distance has to be just the right amount. Because if it's too short, there's no excitement, there's no thrill. And if it's too far, you crash and burn like Evel Knievel.
Yeah.
You can't believe the setup doesn't match the punchline. So you have to find, and that's what you're tweaking when you do jokes in front of a lot of different crowds. You're tweaking that distance and that arc and that all of that. And so, I think you got to push, but you don't want to be on stage being like somebody that you're totally not. I mean, we've all seen comics that they've had 15-year careers. And so now they have jokes about being single, and then they have jokes about being married. Right. And so the audience kind of get this whiplash of like, wait a minute, I thought you were single.
Yeah.
And they just have forgotten that they're giving the audience this weird, cognitive dissonance about their own personality on stage, and with accidentally doing it.
Can I tell you my favorite joke that I was told not to tell? When you talk about pushing the boundaries a little bit or making people feel a little uncomfortable, are you a baseball fan? So I was doing a show, this is many, many moons ago, for the Chipper Jones Foundation, the Hall of Fame third baseman for the Braves, right?
That's a good gig.
Yeah. So it's me and one other comic. And before the show, I meet with the agent, Chipper's agent, and there's all these players, ex-players, current players. It's some big silent auction for this charity event. And they said, I had this great opening joke, I thought, and it happens to be about Chipper. So before the show, they were like, hey, just don't do any jokes about Chipper. He just doesn't. And
whatever,
I wish the comedian.
Don't do your favorite thing.
Yeah, I bailed. I didn't do it. But the joke was, so that the Mets old stadium, which is now Citi Field, used to be called Shea Stadium, right? So my joke was going to be, Chipper named one of his sons, or his only son, I don't know, one of his sons Shea, because he hits really well in Shea Stadium, which goes to show you why he didn't name his son Playoffs.
I mean, that's amazing. I would have a hard time not doing that joke.
I know, but I was like, so young. I may have been 5 or 7 years into comedy. So young.
That's when it's dangerous, because that's when you might do it anyway. And it really could have hurt you.
I just thought
you probably made the right call, but
it was.
It's his foundation or whatever. You don't want to. You got to tread a little bit lightly, but man, I don't know.
And I wanted his autograph too.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Is like, I always feel like when I'm brought in to do something and they try to tell you how to do it, it's like weird, because it's like, if they bring in a speaker and a guy, and if somebody's going to be the honor guy, I'm going to give the award, I'm going to do the thing, and then they bring you in, it's like, well, you've already got a guy that's going to be the kiss the butt guy.
Right.
Brought me in because I'm funny, like, let me be funny. But there's a weird thing, like, again, that's my religious upbringing. Like, there's a thing in church, especially Pentecostal churches like I was raised in, I would call it like honor culture, almost like the man of God is like this. Whatever you do, don't say anything about the man of God, no matter what. So accountability can get kind of lost. So I think comedy is that great meritocracy, because accountability is everywhere. Like,
the equalizer.
You can't get so big that a joke can't be made about you. So when somebody says, whatever you do, don't make fun of the king, I'm just like, well, that's what I'm here for. It would be really hard. But again, that's one of those mistakes you might make as a young comic. But as you get older, you're like, let's get the check and get out of here.
Yeah. Well, what's your take on the Will Smith, Chris Rock? I know it's been played out in the media, over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the moment, I like both of those guys. I don't know him, but it's like, it's weird. At the moment, I was like, I knew it was going to be huge. I think somebody was tweeting that it just happened.
Right.
and it was trending and blowing up on Twitter, and I immediately turned it on. I wouldn't have normally watched the show. I turned it on. The reason I turned it on is I was like, he's nominated tonight. And if he wins, he's going to have to give a speech after this. Yeah. And I wanted to see that moment. And sure enough, he won and then gave that awkward speech.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of defending and whatever. And it was very awkward. And the people that thought it wasn't real were the most fascinating people to me. The people that were like, well, that's clearly staged. I was like, you don't even understand. There's no way it's staged. It's too weird.
Yeah.
You know,
they would have.
I think I said on my podcast that I said the people who thought it was staged have never seen Chris Rock act.
Right.
You know, he's not that good. It was awkward.
Right.
And, but yeah, I mean, obviously comedians mostly sided with Rock and thought he made this kind of harmless. People thought it was a cruel joke. I don't know about that. I think he was kind of reaching, like he was making like an aside comment.
It was
wasn't even like it wasn't even like a whatever I do, I'm going to make fun of her bald head.
Right.
I think it was that kind of a thing where he just threw it out there and then maybe, and he laughed at first, I guess, and then looked over at her and she wasn't laughing. And he just thought, I need to do something. And so then it became like macho moment or whatever.
Yeah. It came out that it was not planned. It was a bit of an improv off the cuff thing. And I think the thing that bothered me the most was it's a bit of a bully. He chose to go up there based on who said it.
Yeah, that's
right. If it was Wanda Sykes or The Rock, he would have not slapped them.
Right.
But it was a smaller dude.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny too, because right up to the moment, he didn't see it coming either. Yeah. You know, he was laughing all the way up until it happened.
Yeah. I almost thought it was going to be like a funny exchange between the two of them, like a fake hug or a fake strangle or something like silly.
Right. But you knucklehead, and then he really hit him. So yeah, I don't know. And it'll be interesting to see what Rock says about it. Because I know he said a couple of things in shows since then, but I don't know what you can say. Like when social media takes something, every take is taken away from you. That's one of the dangerous things for comedy about social media is by the time you go to write a joke about whatever, it's been so done to death, especially if it's pop culture. So literally he's going to be a victim of that. His own moment is going to have been taken away from him by Chad562 on Twitter.
Sure.
Because that angle's already been taken.
Yeah.
So he'll have to really craft it or just walk away and be like, I don't care to talk about this ever again. I don't want to be known for this moment. And that would probably be the ideal thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting to watch what he says. And it would just be wild if Will Smith came out at the end of his special or something like, you know what I mean?
That's the thing too. Yeah. Like if they've buried the hatchet secretly and now there'll be a big moment where they have a fake exchange or there'll be some publicity stunt for real that happens.
So here's why at the beginning of the podcast, I called you, what did I call you? Terribly funny.
Terribly funny.
So why I'm jealous of and I know I shouldn't be jealous. I'm being a little bit facetious, but I watched your special again. Right.
Yeah.
And I have some of my favorite bits jotted down here. The double-decker grave, of course. Phase 2 of losing the weight, the untuck and dark clothes killed me. I love that. Carbohydrates holding the world together and the Q-tip bit. But you have so many punchlines, not only quality, quantity. I think I'm a bit more. Everyone has their own style, right? I'm a bit more not methodical, but like I'm slower.
Mm-hmm.
So it made me, I watched your special when it came out, and then I rewatched it recently. Yeah. And I had so much more appreciation for the just funny, just boom. But like I'm just stuck in the corner of a boxing match. It was great. I mean, it's so.
Thanks. I don't really know where that comes from. When I see somebody that's more a style that's like closer to yours, I get jealous of that because I think, am I hurrying? Like if I ever get nervous, because I'm already really rapid fire, and if I ever get nervous, I'll hurry through my setups and punchlines won't land as hard, and I'll be like, what's going on? And I'll watch it back and I'll be like, oh, I hurried through this. They didn't get all the information they needed to laugh because I got to get to the punchline. So there's this kind of clock in my head, I think, from when I started. When you start, you're terrified.
Yeah.
And you think every time you pause, that the audience is like, get off the stage. You know, I don't even stop to drink water. I'm just crazy, just go, go, go. Because I'm just terrified of being like hooked at the Apollo or whatever. Guy comes out and sweeps you.
Right.
So I think from that nervousness and that energy, it wasn't like, I'm going to be a rapid fire comic like Henny Youngman, or I'm going to be a rapid fire comic like whoever. It was more like an urgency in my head. And I think it just never went away. Another thing that I think is really ingrained in my style that never really went away is like a little like lilting afterthought that kind of almost steps on the laugh.
Right.
And a lot of that was the same thing of like, if I let them completely stop laughing before I start again, and I'll kill the energy of the room.
Right.
And so now it's just kind of ingrained into my style for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I've had people say, well, you step on the laugh there. And I was like, I don't know how to tell you this, but this is just what I do. I don't know how to stop doing it.
Yeah. I didn't see that, but I get where you can, you know, going as the speed you do. But so here's a testament to your success, right? The self-awareness to watch yourself and go, hey, why aren't the punches landing?
Yeah.
Going too fast. There's too many young guys coming up, and they, you know, I'll still go to open mics occasionally and try, you know, work on some new material, and they get up there and bomb, and they come off and like, I killed it. That was so great. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what it's hard for me to give feedback, right? So you have to have that self-awareness of what.
I got to start right now. I've got a new social media manager. And so they're posting a lot of old clips because I just sent them this whole library video, and they're just like, all right, we're going to pull clips. And so now they're posting. It's so funny to watch yourself too, go from thin to fat to thin to fat to middle to fat. I'm like Oprah. I'm just coming out. You don't know what, just spin the wheel. What Oprah is going to walk out.
Right. Johnny, you're talking to a guy that has a thinner picture of himself over his.
Exactly. That's your goal. It's your goal picture. It's like the woman who hangs the bikini of the summer vacations coming up. Yeah. So you got to hang that up so you can look at it every day. I'm going to get into those jeans. But anyway, so that's weird. That's the one weird part. And the other one is like, I've told some of these jokes 1,000 times. And so they'll pick one out and it'll be an old clip, you know, when I'm 50 pounds heavier and I'm telling it and I'm wondering like, what version of this is this going to be?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, I've added this since then, or wow, I was hurrying there, or man, that crowd was really hot. I see why they chose this. That crowd was really hot, even though I wasn't terrific there. So, but I need to watch all that said, I need to watch myself more, because I think you do get into the habit of like, once you got an hour that you really love and you're proud of, the tendency to just be like, let's coast, and you can develop bad habits again.
Yeah.
I had one where I was touching my chest a lot. You ever do that where you fumble with things and you're just you know, I started leaving the mic in the stand a few years ago because I realized like the mic was dropping on me as I would get going, and the sound guys like having to crank the mic and they start feeding. I go, oh, and I'd pull it back up. I wanted to make sure the crowd was seeing my face, I think, and I was just kind of nervously like dropping the mic. And then so I just was like, I think I watched Norm's special, and I was just like, I'm just going to leave it in the stand. He left it in the stand. Seinfeld leaves it in the stand. What's the arm? Then it's a fixed position. But now I've got my hands free to just do whatever. Yeah. And I don't want to be like the showing the exit row on the plane lady.
Right.
So I have to control that. So anyway, I started just like, I noticed in a couple of clips that I was just like, anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. And I like, what do you do? What's wrong with you? What in the world? And so my buddy Rick talks about that too. He's like, when you get rid of one tick, like another one will like pop up. It's like, you can't stop them all. People shift the mic stand like they're a over the road trucker. You know, you see that one a lot.
I did that. I was guilty of that last night with the mic stand. But two of my favorite comedians have a verbal after a lot of stuff. Jake Johansson and Nate. Is it Bargatze?
Bargatze, yeah.
And they have that little thing. I've never met Nate, but I've worked with Jake a couple times. It's super funny. Did Letterman like 30,000 times.
Incredible. Yeah, it's incredible.
And he's like, yeah, it's just one of those things. I'd love to get rid of it, but I just don't.
Right.
I don't. It's just part of what I've been there 30 years, and it doesn't hurt him, but it's just an interesting, you know, because when I watch comedy, you know, sometimes the person I'm watching with is like, why aren't you laughing? That's funny. I'm like, I know, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm absorbing like the technique.
Yeah. You're watching it like a scientist.
Yeah.
You're watching it like you're observing phenomena in their natural habitat.
And then I'm getting angry because they're so good. And I need to throw all my jokes out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the hard part when you go to a show and you're on a show with like other great comics and you're like, I got you. You feel like I got nothing. You walk, I have nothing for these people. It's like that moment of doubt. I think imposter syndrome is a little bit healthy. I do think it can be crippling, but I think imposter syndrome is healthier than the other thing, which is the open mic comic you're talking about that will never get better.
Right.
Because they go, well, I crushed. What do you mean? And you're like, no, you didn't crush. Or like a comic who's getting a laugh, but they don't know why they're getting it, or they're getting a laugh for the wrong reason. And they'll always get that laugh for the wrong reason because the audience is like uncomfortable or they feel sorry for the guy or whatever. Like that person really can't be helped. But somebody who's a little bit like, do I really belong here? That person's probably going to work a little harder.
Right.
But I mean, obviously there's extremes to it. I mean, I've been in positions before where I was like it can be crippling anxiety about your presence on stage. And that's not good. You want to have that happy medium of like, people always ask me that, do you get nervous? And the truth is I'm not nervous like it's going to go bad, but I have like a healthy level of like butterflies of like, I got to bring it for these people. Many times they don't know who you are,
right?
You know, or they go, "Who's the guy this year at the fundraiser event? Who is he?"
Right.
So they don't know you. They have no stake in your career, and so there should be a healthy level of like, I need to bring it.
Yeah,
but not so far that you're like, I can't do this. Like you want to find that happy balance. But if you're so aloof that you walk out and be like, yeah, I always kill, this will go great. Like, no. I don't know. First of all, I don't understand that person at all. I know there are people like that, and some of them really do kill.
Yeah.
But I don't understand them. That's not been my path at all.
I have that anxiousness too, and the butterflies, and I'm not comfortable until I get my first laugh.
Right. You feel that relief, like, okay.
Yeah. See? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the anxiousness is also too, it's like, you know, if there's an MC in a feature before me, I'm like, my anxiousness is like, get me up there now. Like get me, they're doing fine, but get me up there now.
Yeah. And then there's the thing of like, if you do shows a lot, like I do a lot of shows in faith-based events. And so they are many times not used to having comedy. So they won't know how to set the stage for you in a way, or maybe there's not something that happens where it's out of their control and there's no way but to basically wreck the show.
Right.
An example, I did the last show that I did, and the people were so sweet. It was amazing. And they were very kind, but it was a youth event, which that's a whole other wild card you're doing but there was a lot of adults in the room too, which was cool. But it was in Sweetwater, Tennessee. And I go out and I get to the place and they go, oh, they're going to have 200 students and leaders and adults. Great. Small Baptist church. And then they said, they came down, I was eating, and they said, just so you know, one of the students, an 18-year-old student, died in a car accident yesterday. And the service for him is actually tonight. So it could actually affect our attendance. And beyond that, we feel like we have to mention it and acknowledge it. And we'll say a prayer. And then I'll try to get it all back to normal. Then I'll bring you. I was first. So it was like me, and then there was going to be a worship team, and then there's going to be a preacher. And I was like, and the other people were down there that were on the show or on the event, and they were like looking at me like,
yeah,
how are you going to do this? And I go, oh no, it's going to be awful. And I said, I get why they're doing it because they feel like they have to, but this is not ideal.
Yeah.
And, but I didn't I'll never go out. I was just like, look, it's not my event. I can't tell them not to acknowledge this.
Right.
Obviously it's horrible for the family and whatever. I just was hoping oh, maybe they should do it later in the thing or before the preacher, maybe they could all pray. Nope. They wanted to do it first. And sure enough, they did. And it got really heavy in the room. And then he kind of tried to bring it back up to normal.
Right.
And then it was still heavy when I took the stage. And so that you talk about relief when I got my first laugh.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. Cause I was prepared to bomb for 45 minutes.
Sure.
And I was like, I just already set my mind like, well, this will be bad. And I'll just have a story of the worst situation ever. And I muddled through and I got the check and got out. But actually they were really great. Sometimes in a heavy room like that, they're ready for that release valve.
Sure.
You know, I think maybe that, I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously there's no way to know, but sometimes I go into the fun place. You're like, oh, we're the fun church or we're the fun.
Right.
You're like, okay. And they can be real arm foldy. Like, we've had other people. You're good. they're kind of like jaded. And sometimes you go into a really tight, like religious traditional church and you're like, oh man, they're going to hate me and my fart jokes. They're not going to like me. And then you tell a joke and they're like, boom, they're ready. It's like you popped the balloon.
Well, do you remember what you opened with with that show with someone passing?
I didn't mention it. He had said something, I think, about the church being old, but he goes, it's not haunted or whatever. And I think I said something like, that's exactly what you would say if your church was haunted, by the way. It's 100% what you would say. Right. Come on in, kids. But it was just one of those things of like, try to move on and put distance between you and that announcement. And so if I had to put my head down and just bore through the wall and then get to the other side, then it's like, oh, that was way back then. Now we're into the comedy. But I was prepared to just swallow 10 minutes of jokes to get there. And it really only took about 2 minutes to get them laughing. Which
great.
I was more than surprised. Surprised. It wasn't like, I'm so good, of course it worked out. I'm like really shocked that it worked out.
Yeah. When we've talked about your dry bar, the experience you've had. So when did you actually start and how did you get into comedy? I know you mentioned Knoxville and the emceeing or whatever.
Yeah, by then I was already living near Nashville in a town called Mount Juliet. And we moved here in 2007, late 2006. And I took a job at a church. I was a young adults pastor at a church for like 4 years. But in the meantime, in 2008, we did this event, college event or something at my church. And a bunch of students from all over the state came in. And because we were hosting it, the main guy was like, hey, you should get up and do the, icebreaker thing. And I was like, I'm not gonna. And I was in bands and stuff before. So I knew I was like comfortable a little bit in front of a crowd, but only if I had like a guitar and my buddy with me. So my buddy was busy. No, he wasn't busy. He was sick. I called him, he's sick. He's like, I can't do it. I'm sick. I've been in bed all day. I go, are you kidding me? I was like all excited. Like, we've got this opportunity. We'll do a dumb song or something. We'd write these silly songs and he couldn't do it. So I just thought, well, I could either just like let this moment pass, or I could like, for whatever reason, I just thought I'm going to try just to do jokes. I'll make fun of the other college. I found out what other colleges were coming. And I like went online and looked them up and got pictures of their mascots and put them on. And then I like had my buddy who does Photoshop really well. He Photoshopped like what their mascot should be. And I think one of them was like University of Tennessee at Martin. And I was like, I called them like the Fighting Van Burens or something like that. It was just something really stupid stuff like that. But the students, it was very personalized. And so they dug it. It's almost like when you do a show at a room and they got a weird chandelier and you mention the chandelier and everyone cracks up because it was like they never noticed that their chandelier looks like it's the Starship Enterprise or whatever. But when you say it, it's like, oh my gosh, it does. It was that kind of a thing where it was so personalized to them that it was a hit. And if it hadn't been, I never would have done it again. I didn't have like the confidence to be like, of course I'll be a comedian. But when that happened, it kind of like lit the pilot light. And I was like, okay, this could be a thing. I was really lost at the time of what am I supposed to be doing with my life? Like I was happy doing ministry, but I was also like, what's the next thing? And that was just provided it. So all my angst of being like a 20 something and 30 something angst ridden person of like, never went to college, all of that, it just went away in a flash. Just like, I'm going to devote myself to this. I'm going to be as funny as I can be. And I just started getting really serious about being funny. And and so that I got a little momentum from that. A few events came from that. Some colleges started having me come in. They were like, oh, and so that was pretty cool because it was like one of those events. It was almost like a showcase event. Yeah. And so I'd go in and make $75 to come to, Murfreesboro and do Middle Tennessee State and do an event there. And then in 2012, I started opening for a guy named Tim Hawkins. Yeah. Who's pretty big in the like church.
And you knew him previously or just met him?
I met him a couple of times. And there's a conference that a lot of the church comics attend. And I had met him there in one of those years. He's super kind. And I mean, he was already kind of a hero of mine because I never met anybody like so prolific. He had so much material and he was so humble. So he was really a great resource. And they liked what I did. I had a dumb little like CD by then after 3 or 4 years of doing it. And I gave it to his manager, who was also his brother at the time. He's still his brother, he's not his manager. He was his brother at the time. Now they've separated. Yeah, not so much. But anyway, no, his manager's his brother. And he was looking for somebody to kind of take some gigs that Tim couldn't do, I think, at the time. It was one of those things where Tim was transitioning out of doing as many private events. He was doing more ticketed events. And so they were like, we got to have somebody that can do youth. Like, I don't have anybody that can. And somebody recommended me. And I was like, where
How
are
great
they?
is that?
So I gave him my CD and I thought I'll never hear from him again. And then I heard from his brother and, hey, would you want to open for Tim on a weekend? And so I did. And that was in April of 2012.
Right.
And I was already doing like, I don't know, 30 or 40 things a year. But it was like a big fast forward button.
For sure.
Getting it because like that weekend really went really well. And then he started taking me out on more events with him. And those are like 2,000 people, 3,000 people in the crowds. And so it was a huge open door. And and he was cool too. And it kind of taught me a lot about like being gracious on stage, because he had learned over the years that like it didn't matter when he brought out his openers. So he did not make his openers open cold. He was like, they're not here to see you. So I want to put you in the best position. So he would come out and do like almost an hour.
Really?
Yeah. And then he would go, hey, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. He's been traveling with me. He's going to be your new favorite comedian. Welcome, Jonnie W. And I'd come out and I'd do 15 minutes. And then I would kick to like an intermission. And then they would all like run to my merge table, which was unbelievable. Tim was always great about that. He was like, make your money, dude. I mean, he was always, everything I'd heard in like club comedy and comedy in general was like, don't tick off the headliner.
Right.
Get out of his way. Whatever you do, don't step on any of his premises. If he has a joke about Facebook, you need to lose your Facebook joke, you know, and just very like, tread lightly. And Tim was the opposite. He was like, dude, I want you to like kill. He goes, you're so gifted. Like I want you to make the show better. As long as you make the show great, I'm going to be good with you. And so that was such a cool experience. So I'd go out.
He would go back up?
We'd go back up and do another hour usually.
Whoa.
Yeah. So his shows were usually like 2.5 hours.
That's unheard of.
Yeah. So, and his fan base is bananas. Like they're so grassroots because he never had like label, like he built it all from YouTube. And so he didn't need, like his fans they're just different. They're a different kind of fan base. It's almost like the closest thing I ever saw to it in club world would have been, I worked with John Reap at Side Splitters one time, and watching him and how he interacted with his fans and the connection he had on stage, that folksiness, that was the closest thing I'd ever seen to Tim Hawkins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. But anyway, because of that, I was like, man, this guy's just different. And so it made me think, when I started bringing people out with me, I tried to like not make them open cold unless I just need them. Like, hey man, I don't know this crowd. They don't know me. I need you to open cold. But sometimes I'll bring them up in the middle, and all that's from Tim. I just kind of learned like, well, you know, you put the person in the best possible situation and show a little grace. And
that's crazy.
Man, it made a big difference.
Yeah.
Like going up like that when people are still like getting their seats and the lights aren't even low yet. And you're like, hey, and they're like, who's this clown? Is he doing announcements? You know, it's a whole different thing than when somebody's been killing for an hour and they bring you out with this huge intro. They roll up the red carpet for you, you know.
One church tried to hire me to do a women's conference in a big auditorium, but they wanted to put me up during the intermission.
Yeah.
Start the show in hopes that my jokes would bring people from the lobby into the auditorium.
Like a barker.
And I go, that's not going to, you know, I told them, no, I want the show to be successful as possible. Right. And that's just not going to, I need an attentive audience. And
that's a bummer when you have to like protect someone who is paying you from themselves.
Yeah.
That's a weird feeling when you're like, I know you think this is a great idea and I appreciate the money that you're going to pay me.
Yeah.
But I want this to work so that you don't have like a bad taste in your mouth when this is over. So I'm going to tell you now, don't do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes I just go, whatever, they're determined to do it. But over the years, I put my foot down a few times because I was like, you don't understand. Or sometimes the worst feeling, and I know you've had this feeling too, Danny, is when you kill in their mind, but they don't know how good it could have been had they done like five or six other things. Like they didn't lower the lights, or the sound system was bad, or the back rows couldn't hear you. And they go, oh, it was one of the best events. Like a corporate event's very famous for this. Like if you do a company event, the most you can hope for is like a 7 out of 10.
Right.
You know, like a 7 out of 10 would be a standing ovation at any other event.
Right.
Because it's so stiff. It's a meeting, or speakers are in the ceilings of a ballroom.
Yes.
And so if you get 7 out of 10 at a corporate, it's like fireworks going off in your head.
Yeah.
But like sometimes they'll be like, oh, so amazing, so amazing. And you just think to yourself, you got no clue what this could have been. And I hate to be that way because it sounds arrogant, but you know what I mean? It's like they didn't even really give the best scenario for you.
Yeah.
They still pulled it off.
I had a company, they wanted me to enter the banquet room of the hotel during dinner and bump into the CEO, and it would be pre-planned. They don't know a comedian's coming. Bump into the CEO who's carrying a tray of drinks, and they all spill over. We have a bit of an argument. I grab the microphone and I go, "I'm your comedian tonight."
Oh no!
And then just proceed. And I go, "I love the a dollar amount you're offering, but I go, I swear to you, please tell them there's a comedian coming and they're done with dinner. Maybe they have coffee and dessert, and there's lights are lowered, and sure enough, they did. They agreed with me.
That's good.
It went great, right? But that would have been horrible. I know too many comics that just go along with.
Yeah. I try to put myself in their shoes on the Monday morning after the event, and I want them to be able to walk in and be like, "See, I told you guys this was my guy." And trying to get that win for them. And if you see something that's in that way, in the way of that win, and you go, you think this is going to make you look even better, that I bumped in and knocked the drinks out, and now you can take a joke and you're funny. This is going to make it not a win if you don't do what I say. Like, it's a weird thing though, but that's, sometimes it's like, you got to be the adult in the room and be like, I've done this 1,000 times. And this won't work. But sometimes people are determined, and they think, especially if you go to like some places where they have creatives on staff and they want to be a part of it. I did an event one time. It was a corporate, and it was for Serve Pro. They do like fire and water restoration. And they're a great company, but they saw me at a show with Tim Hawkins, and they were like, "Oh, we'd love to have you come to our national event," which it's amazing. They have like these franchisees, and it's like all like millionaires. These people that work for these companies, it's crazy. So they all gather. It's a cocktail dress and black tie event, and then you'll come out. And it was at a Gaylord Opryland Hotel. And I was like, "Great." So I go out, and I was meeting them with them to talk about the thing, and they go, "We've got a couple of guys." That was the guys who had hired me that saw me, and they were the PR directors or whatever, and the marketing people. And it was like 2 guys, and they said, well, we're kind of funny. We're always, and I was like, when you hear that, you're like, oh no, they're going to.
Please don't say you want to do anything.
Sure enough, well, I do this thing called the joke medley, where I do like a one-liners thing over guitar, and they go, "We love that, and we thought we could all do that we could come out." It's because I was doing like, some corporate things where you do like, I'll do 10 minutes of jokes, then you read a list of names, and I'll do 10. It was one of those kind of events. Here's our diamond sponsors, our diamond award winners. And they read 18 names, and then you come out and do 10 more minutes. So I knew it was going to be not great, but it really was. It was one of those events where like it could not, whatever it was, I was undefeated that night. But then when they had wanted to do that thing, I was like, I don't know. And they kept pushing, and I was like, I'm going to cost myself this event if I don't say yes. And so they said, well, if you want to, we'll write some jokes. We'll write some one-liners. I go, okay. Are these going to be like dad jokes or like street jokes or whatever? And they go, well, we'll figure it out. And it got closer to the event. They came up with their jokes, and their jokes were like just okay. And I was like, I don't want to like bury you guys though. Because it'll look weird if like I tell a joke that's a solid joke, and then you guys, every time you tell a joke, it gets nothing. And you're the leaders of this event. Like, it's weird. And so what I did was, I thought was the gracious thing. I said, I've got like 80 one-liners. Let me just give you some of mine. And they were like, "You do that?" I go, "Yeah." And so that's what I did. So we went down the row, and they just did, and it worked. Because they could deliver it. They knew how to talk in front of a group, and so they could deliver the joke. They just maybe couldn't necessarily write the joke. But actually, I'm glad I did it that way. I could have just been like, "No, I'm not gonna give you my jokes. What are you, crazy? Like, these are my babies or whatever." But I was like, stop being so precious about everything.
You're there to entertain.
Right. So I did it, and it worked out great. And I've done it one other time since then. Actually, they had me come do it when it was in Seattle, and they were great. But sometimes that's one of those your ego's not your amigo moments, I guess, where you go, all right, well, the right thing to do is to put my foot down and be like, this is my art. And probably the actual right thing to do is to be like, what do I care? Who's here? You know what I'm saying? It's on TV.
Right. It's 500 Serve Pro employees.
Yeah, and they were great, but it's that thing of like, let yourself just be taken by the moment and do whatever serves the event the best.
I'm glad you brought up the one-liners or jokes at the end of your set, because that was
Yeah.
the end of your dry bar special with the guitar.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was going to ask you, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. You've been very generous with your time.
Yeah.
But your writing style. So your random thoughts or jokes at the end of your set over guitar reminds me of something I do in my act for a list of things I couldn't find a place for these smaller jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So I lump them into like, these are groups of people that agitate me, whether it's
yeah.
So, and I put them in that, and so I found a place in my act for. So
that's a cool idea. It's a good setup. Yeah.
Do you intentionally sit down and write? Do you have a thought and put it on a napkin and then come back to it? Like, what's your writing style?
Yeah. It's changed over the years. I think in the beginning, I was just so desperate to have, like, I was trying to cobble together a good 30 minutes and a good whatever. Like in the church market, it's a little bit different, which I do some churches still, and now some secular market stuff, and some, it's all mixed. But in the beginning, when you start out in churches, you can't just be like, I got 5 minutes. Like, they're bringing you in to do their dinner. You need to have a solid 45 minutes at least.
Sure.
So it's a lot of pressure. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to get that really quick. And then I think it slowed down a little bit. Stephen Wright used to talk about, like, when he used to go outside, it would be like his ideas would come to him almost like a snowstorm, and now it's flurries or whatever. Now when Stephen Wright writes his one-liners, the one-liners are different. I think those came to me because of Twitter. I got on Twitter in like 2008, and I was writing these long-form jokes, and it kept being like, too many characters. And I was like, oh. So I'd shorten it down, too many characters. And I would finally end up with this crafted thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's just as funny as the thing that I wrote that was a paragraph.
Right.
So over the course of like a year on Twitter, I had like 40 of these things that I really thought were interesting. And I was like, well, I don't have any, where do I put these? I don't just want to launch into one-liners. And that's not really the style of my act. And so I put them to music because I already had the guitar with me on stage. And obviously other comics have done that. People always want to compare it to like Dimitri. I think Dimitri's the guy who made it probably the most famous. But one of the reasons I got into comedy was a guy named Gary Muledeer. I don't know if you know who Gary is, but
no, I never heard of him.
He's like an old guard guy, and he does the Opry a lot, and he toured like opening for like a bunch of country artists. And he would do this thing where he would start playing his guitar and doing like one-liners or like street jokes, and then he would drop his pick, and he would bend down, and he'd have the mic on his guitar, and then he would bend down and say while he was down there, he would just say a joke into that mic.
Right.
Then he would come back up here and say a joke into this mic, and then he'd be like, I'm going back down here. It was like such a funny vaudeville vibe thing. So it's such a funny, and it always tickled me as a kid. And so that's one of the reasons I started doing like spoken word comedy with a guitar, because I liked him. And more than Dimitri. I like Dimitri, but it was just, people just automatically think if you do jokes with a guitar that it's Dimitri or Zach Galifianakis, or
right.
Which is fine. I don't care, because I mean, it's not like they're different jokes. It's just it's a gimmick.
Sure.
They're just all gimmicks. We're just trying to get laughs up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those come a little bit differently. Sometimes I think that can be tricky. To your point about writing those, like when you write a joke that's a one-liner, maybe it starts out as like a one-liner, but it should go on in your notebook to be like a 5-minute bit. But if it lives in your act as a one-liner for too long, it just kind of it's like a cemetery for that joke.
Yeah.
Because you never really expand on it. I've had jokes that's happened to, I think, where I go, that should have really been like a 5 or 6 minute thought. And I let it decay, you know. But sometimes things are only funny for 15 seconds, and you got to just be like, this was a 15-second joke, and that's good.
Yeah, that's so frustrating. You do a joke once or a bit and kills, and then it never, you're like, what did I do last year that made this work? So when you think of a song, like, you know, you think of an idea for a song, do you kind of just, I got to step away and write this out, or you just kind of make a mental note?
Sometimes I thought the song bits come really scattershot. I started out in music, so you would think that'd be the most natural thing to me, but I wasn't the songwriter in our group. I was the singer. And so when I started doing music bits, it just was like a hiding place, hide behind the guitar. And okay, I feel comfortable doing this. So a lot of my act was guitar. Now most of it's monology, and the guitar is like a little throw in at the end. More so, it's like 20% at the end. But I need more music bits. I have like a folder in my computer. I use Evernote. I have like a folder in my computer that's like 18 or 19 songs that are like 20% done. I really have to grind on them, and I don't know, like I'm making the one that I really want to finish now is about like hyperbole and love songs about, there's been 5 or 6 songs that talk about like, until the sun burns out, as long as the sky is above us, I'll still love you, and all this stuff. It's
Right.
all this hyperbole and love songs, flowery language. And so I'm working on one that's kind of, it'll start out like that, and then it'll get really like apocalyptic. When the alien pod people come down and take us all, and we live in separate jars, I'll still care for you. That kind of thing.
Right.
So there's ideas like that I love. My favorite kind of bit musically is when you're playing something really pretty and singing something really softly, but it's horrifying.
Yeah.
I think that juxtaposition makes me laugh more than anything. Like painting a really picture of something that's really absurd.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of thing that makes me laugh. And so I try to give that to the audience if I can, when I'm doing musical comedy. So a lot of my songs are very short. That if you watch my music bits, they're very boom, 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 pull the rug, get out. And so it's kind of ADD,
it fits perfectly.
Audience. Yeah.
And not only are you, from what I can tell, I'm not musically inclined, a good guitar player, you're a good singer.
Yeah, thanks. That's why I got started. That was kind of my comfort zone, I guess, a little bit. And yeah, I mean, a lot of comics that use music in their act kind of talk, sing, or they're just kind of like, and it's fine, but I think that's a little bit shot. When I pull out the guitar and start to sing, I think people are a little bit surprised that it's not going to be that.
Yeah.
They've seen 45 minutes of just monology, and then they go, oh, okay.
Especially, by the way, I've never heard the word monology before.
Oh, yeah.
Before today.
Yeah, like traditional stand-up. Yeah. So anyway, when I do zanies, it's interesting because it's like I get a little bit nervous because you never know who's in the audience. I did a show the other day, and it was who wrote what's her name? Leanne Womack was in the crowd.
Oh wow.
I Hope You Dance. So like at Zanies, you don't know. You could be like singing in like real,
Yeah.
You could have.
I did Zanies once many years ago. I featured for Renee Bray.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if they still do this, but they put the feature acts up in the office / 1-bedroom house right next to Zanies still?
It is, but now they got a condo. Yeah.
Okay. It was behind a Dollar General or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And that's where I auditioned for Last Comic Standing there as well.
Oh, right. That's right. That was what, 08, I guess.
I was in the snow. Like I had 2 inches on my shoulder.
Yeah,
finally get in and I'm shaking. The guy's like, is it cold out there? I'm like, it's snowing.
That's pretty rare here too. That's so funny. That was the year that I started. And so people were like, oh, you got to go audition. I was like, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
3 minutes, do 3 minutes in front of 2 people.
Yeah.
One laughed, one didn't. And I was like, okay, is that, and they're like, all right, thanks. I'm like, all right. And then that was the year I saw John Heffron leave in the same car as the judges. And he
that's a red flag.
I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't be. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the thing I heard was, and I don't know if I'm not confirmed it, but the thing I heard was like by season 2 or 3 or 4, all of the top 10 finalists all conveniently had the same exact manager.
Yeah, who's the executive producer? Was it Bob something or?
It was like they're all his guys, and you're like, all right, interesting. I wonder if my vote really is counting on this.
Right
now, they don't even make the last season they did. They were just like, look, we're inviting comics we like, and we're not going to apologize. Yeah. They don't even, which I get is probably better because it makes for a better show. Like putting everybody in a house together. I mean, there's an element to that I think people loved back then, but now I just don't know. I don't know. I wish there was more live stand-up on TV. I really do. I mean, I grew up and it was everywhere.
Yeah. Like, it is frustrating though at times seeing like something on TV portrayed as new up and coming comedians.
Yeah.
And it turns out they have a Comedy Central special. They've been on Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, they're already established.
Right. They wanted to, these shows, it's very important to them to have discovered you. You know, they want to launch you. And so they'll even like mess with your backstory and be like, all right, so you tell them that you're trying stand up. Right. You thought you might want to try it. You're like, well, I've been doing this 10 years. No. This is your pipe dream.
Yeah.
And when Howie Mandel gives you the thumbs up, that's going to be the moment where you're a real boy. And until then, you're just Pinocchio. And you're like, I don't love this. I already have fans.
Right.
They're going to be really turned off by this, but okay, you go do it.
But you've seen that, right? Like shows where this guy's
sure.
new, and I know he's had a Comedy Central special. I know
Doug Benson did Last Comic Standing after he had done Comedy Central.
Yeah.
He did a 30-minute special, and then he did the Last Comic Standing. I was like, all right, dude. Even Reap had television commercials, and
yeah,
he was a stand-up star.
And don't get me wrong, I'm happy for these. I want every comedian to be successful, but when they portray it in a way.
But it's like, I think the deal is, you're not a real, until we make you a household name, you don't get to count what you've been doing on the road in Topeka. Yes. There's a little bit of a, esoteric nature to it. Like, where until you're in our club.
Yeah.
Which I get it, but that's kind of a fear too of mine. Like, if you do a show like that, you go on AGT, the worry is that you burn material that you can never do again, right? They start coming to the shows, but if you do the stuff you did on AGT, it's like, well, that's why we're here. Why would you? You're like, these jokes have been my jokes for. So that's a weird fear. I guess it's a unfounded. Most people will never experience.
No, I've gotten a little bit of that from my dry bar. Not a whole lot, but I remember doing shows at Hilton Head, and there was a tabletop of 6 or 8 people, and they made it known they were fans of dry bar. And I was about to go into my Chusky weight doctor bit.
Right.
And I hear one of them in the front row lean over to the other half of the table, go, listen to these. These are great.
Yeah.
About my jokes.
Rattle you? Yeah, you're like, oh, no.
I better write some new jokes.
That's the hard part about comedy too, is compared to music, because I've done a little bit of both. And so it's like, people always ask me, what's the difference? And the main difference is comedy is all about surprise, and music is about like familiarity. If you go to a show and Leonard Skinner does not do Free Bird, you're mad. You're lighting the seats on fire.
Right.
But if you go see me, unless it's a gigantic bit like Hot Pockets or something,
right,
where Gaffigan will, like, I've heard he'll close the show with Hot Pockets.
Yeah, or do the encore with Hot Pockets.
Right, do the encore with Hot Pockets. So like, unless it's something like that where it's so big that it just defies, it's a part of the culture. But for the most part, if you come into my show and I just do all the jokes, you're going to be really bummed out. But if you go to a band and they don't do the songs, then you're bummed out.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a strange. So you gotta have a little bit of a curveball for them. I don't know, but it's hard.
I love trying out new material, though. I definitely don't write as much as I used to, or need to. I definitely write more ideas down, but maybe I now choose, because of my experience, to vet them on stage a little bit.
That's more. What I do too. Yeah, I think before, in the beginning, I had like these little rules almost. It was like, I didn't say it out loud, but the main one that was that it needed to be funny on paper before I would say it on stage. And that was probably a dumb rule, especially once I started touring with Tim and I would see him get laughs from like the craziest stuff, just a facial expression or the way he pursed his lips between a song lyric. And I'd go, oh, he's painting with a whole other palette. And here I am trying to be so cerebral.
Right.
I'm like outsmarting myself. And, but that was kind of an unwritten rule. Like, you could almost like Mitch Hedberg. Like, if I just read you some Mitch Hedberg jokes, you would get laughs.
Right.
But even though I don't have to deliver them like Mitch Hedberg and look at the ground and wear the sunglasses and have the hair. Like, Mitch Hedberg is just a funny writer. But like, some jokes, if I read you'd go, what is that? But then if you see somebody do it, you go, this is amazing. It's so you want both. And I'll work out on stage more. I'll write an idea down. It'll have 1 or 2 sentences and I'll take it up and I'll see.
Because at that point, how grateful are we when we get a really good audience that you can be comfortable enough to go down that road of it.
You need both. One of my favorite things I always say, there was a writer, Chicago writer and comedian named Bill Gorgo. And I went to one of his writing classes, and he said, in performance classes, and he said that when you're starting out and as you go on as a comedian, you need good audiences and bad audiences, because good audiences will help you explore and bad audiences will help you edit.
Yeah.
And I've always remembered that. So when I'm in front of a tough audience, I'm like, it's time to figure out how to edit.
Yeah.
This has gotten too wordy, probably.
Absolutely.
But a good audience will help you. Like you say 1 or 2 extra sentences, and that's how you come up with cool tags. You're like, oh, this is some place I never would have gone had I not been crushing.
Yeah.
So you need that confidence boost. But
yeah. And then the next challenge is, and I know I said I wouldn't keep you, but I keep talking, is remembering what you said when you do expand on those jokes.
Yeah.
What did I say? If I'm not recording it, I'm like, I got to remember that.
No, I got to record more. I bought a new like rig to take out with me on the road to start recording a lot more of my stuff, a little like wireless lapel thing. And I got to start using it more because, yeah, you just never know. Sometimes I won't take it out if I'm like, well, this is going to be a tough show and I already know it. So I'm not going to use anything. And then if you get like a great moment, you're like, what am I thinking? It was so stupid. Just put it on. What does it matter?
Yeah, I'll yell for one of the other comedians to write down what I just said.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Tim used to have a guy that traveled with him, one of his road manager guys. And I remember on one of the first few weekends out with Tim, I would notice he had an iPad in the back. And I was like, what are you doing? And then at the end of the show, we'd be on the bus and Tim would be like, hey, can you send me the notes from tonight? And
wow.
Send the folder over or whatever. And it would be like the extra stuff that Tim said.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great? Isn't it going to be great? Not when we have guys or ladies, like a team, you know what I mean? Like, I got a wardrobe. It's pretty good. Yeah. I gotta go check out the wardrobe guy, and I got a video guy, and I got it. Right now it's all me, and it's not done very well.
Yeah. Well, you get a lot of hands in that pie, though. Sometimes, you know, I've seen the dark side of that too, where it's like everybody's in there, and you're like, all right, well, how much did we make? And then you're like, well, we paid this guy, we paid this guy.
Yeah, like, Billy, you know who Billy Gardell is? Mike and Molly and Bob Hart's Abishola. He once told me, he goes, when you get to a certain level, Danny, every time you put your hand in your pocket, I want you to be prepared to shake 3 hands that are already there.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's a I don't know, there's something that's kind of what's cool about being a road comic and is like being self-employed like that is like you're responsible for it, which is very scary sometimes because you're like, if this goes down, there's nobody else to blame. Like you're so alone on stage. Every weakness is exposed. Yeah. But if it goes well, like nobody's going to tell me what to say or what not to say generally. Like I get to edit this. If I have a crazy idea on the way to the stage, I can try it out. That's pretty cool. Yeah. There's very few jobs that have that kind of autonomy.
Yeah.
That's
can't be a surgeon and be like, I just started this new way to go about the aorta.
What if we go in this way? You're like, I don't think you want to do that.
No. I've been doing this for 10, 20 years. I know what I'm doing.
I want to do some stuff. I'm an artist up here. And they're like, sir, your ego's not your amigo. That's what they would say.
So, Johnny, listen, I'm a fan. I'm very grateful that you took this hour out of your time to chat with me. I'm envious of your office. You got the beautiful guitars, nice picture, some sort of checklist.
The backdrop. This is all fake. This is green screen.
I went with the comedian, I guess, to remind myself that I am one.
Myself and other people.
The dry bar poster of me 30 pounds ago. And Don Rickles' autograph right there.
Oh my gosh, you can't beat Rickles. He's one of those guys too that could never exist today, which is people say that and they go cancel culture, and I don't believe cancel culture is like as bad as people say. Yeah, most people are just getting accountability for what they've said that were cruel and hurtful. But with Rickles, he's one of those guys that truly is. There's no way.
Yeah,
we're way too sensitive for him.
All in the Family and Don Rickles. You know, those two things would never fly.
He was the best, just the best, and to be roasted by him, what an honor. Yeah. So that's cool, man.
So what was the name of your special? Because on YouTube where I watched it, they often change the title of the full.
They do. They change when they put it on YouTube. I don't know what the reasoning is. I never have asked them. But yeah, they called on YouTube. They called it.
It was something about the states.
United States hate each other.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really like.
I know. I was like, oh, he's controversial.
Like aggressive. Yeah. And my act is not aggressive at all. And so I was like, is this to get clicks? Like, what is? And people thought that was what I called the special. I think the special is called "Not My Cup of Tea."
Okay.
And so that's what it is. If it's on the app, that's what you would search for. Not my.
You poisoned the wrong person. That's
right. That's right. This next one is going to be called "Results May Vary."
That's fantastic. The title.
Yeah, and it's from one of the jokes in there about a buddy of mine who was working out with me. And we lost the same amount of weight, but he got pecs and abs and I didn't. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, you got to shave your chest, your stomach, and it creates shadows and makes the muscles pop. And I was like, if you're in here thinking of doing this, let me just say results may vary. And I do a whole thing about how I did it. And
That's great.
I look like a fat toddler, and it's a whole thing.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And people can go to JonnieW.com, JonnieW.com, right?
Yes, sir. That's right. And you can find out I got a bunch of tour dates coming up, and the dry bar should be out by the time this drops out. The dry bar should be out, the second one. So go and watch 30 more minutes of me.
And if I'm in Nashville or if you're near Jacksonville, let's grab some lunch. I'd love to do it again.
We'll make it happen, Danny. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.